Welcome to Transforming Work with Sophie Wade, exploring the future of work. Find out what's going on in our multi-generational distributed organizations. With a new tech and talent focus, discover what you need to know to stay upskilled and relevant and ensure your business keeps its competitive edge.
Hi. This episode is about liquid labor, opening up the labor market to be more liquid and accessible, so companies can find the talent with the skills that they need wherever they're working, especially startups and scale-ups. And workers have more opportunities to find employers who want their specific skills and engage with them in employee and non-employee contracts. I'm delighted to be speaking about the flow of global workers with Fréderic Tshidimba, Chief Inspiration Officer at Empleyo. Empleyo is reshaping how businesses navigate employment, remote staffing, and HR services, enabling startups and corporations to access talent and build presence. Empleyo is an employer of record. Hi, Fred. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hello, Sophie.
Good to see you again. And diving right in, you studied engineering, correct?
Yes, correct, indeed. I studied, had a Master of Business Engineering from Louvain School of Management. And this is where is my alma mater in Belgium.
Which included supply chain management. Why was that something that you focused on at that point?
I was passionate about how companies can really get to grow internationally and different inputs that they need to supply the market. I did my major in marketing, and I also studied this extensively, and eventually I moved more like to the consumer psyche, more for like the end of my studies rather than only supply chain. Yes, I did my thesis or last end of study work on actually like the launch of the products, the organic products actually for a company based in Belgium. That was pretty exciting. And then after that, like without any link to this, I started working at Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay. And you did one of their rotational programs going in between the different areas?
They
No?
started a new traineeship program that was they were launching it. We were three ready to start, and eventually I got assigned to the marketing services and digital, and I
Okay.
didn't know anything about it. But so there was actually a big orientation in my career, like just this kind of sorting in the beginning. Okay, you are French speaking and you're funny, so you're gonna go and manage the agencies that speak French and are funny. By the way, they're doing digital, and I didn't know anything about it.
Coke being such a powerhouse for marketing, what were key learnings that you had at that point early in your career, but going to one of the most sophisticated marketing vehicles on the planet?
At Coca-Cola, I learned three things. The first one is to think big. You can launch new things. You can build on strong insights and never really being bothered by the fact that eventually in the beginning an initiative can be a little bit small. Like eventually you can really think that there's no limit and you can push it further if you execute well. Which is the second point. I learned especially at Coca-Cola Europe, the execution. Like, execution is key. Like 20% is ideation, 80% execution. If you execute well,
Okay.
you're gonna get great results. And then the last thing is consumer insights. Really like listening to the consumer. Don't start to suppose to imagine what you know about the market or about your consumer. Just always go back to research and look for insights, which actually traced back to my major in business engineering, and I really love that. I think it was a wonderful school for learning to listen to the customers.
It sounded like from the conversation we've had previously that they thought you were good at what you did because you were then told that you needed to try and sell Nescafe into Italy.
after 5 years, at Coke, and then I moved to Nestle, where I became a marketing manager.
Right.
And okay. So that's they're actually moving to a Swiss company. I learned totally different things.
Okay.
Actually, there, the bottom line was essential.
Okay.
We were more building great portfolio of products rather than brands only. Always wanting to be minimum second in market, but which means sometimes you're struggling. It's not the Coca-Cola leadership that I used to have.
Sure.
And personally, then after a period of time, indeed, the same way that sometimes when life brings you these kind of opportunities, or people try to put you in a box, that sometimes it's great. So this kind of going to digital was interesting in the beginning. Then eventually, in that case, at Nestle, I was working on Nescafé, the largest division, wanted to go abroad. And indeed, the opportunities I got, instead of going to Switzerland and managing premium ice cream, eventually I got offered to go in Italy to sell Nescafé. And then I thought, okay, maybe that's not the best thing. After the 2008 crisis, I thought maybe time to do something new. And this is where we decided to move, yeah.
So you then moved to the Philippines for an opportunity,
Yes.
And that was working for another company. You didn't yet set up your own agency, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So knowing eventually some people wanted to box me into a job that I didn't really find so exciting. Yes, it was moving abroad. Yes, it was some kind of international experience. But eventually, after nearly 10 years in marketing, I thought maybe it's time to do something else.
Right.
And I said to my wife, actually, why don't I follow you? I don't have to be the one making the move.
Good for you.
A teacher in international school, and she found opportunities. So it was, where do you want to go? I got 3 offers, one in Guangzhou, one in Turkey, and one in Philippines. And then we didn't know anything about those 3. We hesitated a lot between those 2 in Asia. And then we went for the Philippines. Then I quit my job, and I became a training spouse for a couple of months. So it was an experiment. I realized I didn't like this too much because it was a little bit boring.
Right.
And then I joined a digital advertising company. And this is where actually the first choice of my manager on the first day as a trainee was pretty essential actually to my change at that moment in career, because eventually I learned a lot about digital. I was managing digital agencies. And when I arrived in the Philippines, I realized that it was the hub for software developers and customer support back in the days. And so knowing digital and knowing how to manage this was critical to that period of time. Yes.
Were most of the clients then in Asia? You're so different from Asia. I've spent a lot of time, spent 5 years living in Hong Kong. The way to approach branding, how people connect with brands, all of that cultural differences is extremely different to Western Europe. How did you adjust to that and the clients that you were dealing with?
Yes, it was quite an adjustment going from advertiser to digital agency. So I was really working in strategic planning and account management. So it's really you're sitting at the same table, but you have to turn the table around. So first, letting go of some of the old habits, and then second, I work for campaigns for Nestle, for Unilever. They used to be my competitors, but it's forgetting also removing your hat and thinking really in terms of what's their interest and what they want to achieve. The population is much younger there. It's vibrant. The kind of marketing that you're doing, there's a lot of endorsement that used to be done at that time. There were a lot of things really announcing K-pop, star endorsement, and all these kind of things. So it's totally different from what I used to do in major markets. I learned about how to break the ice, speaking about the gossips about the last stars and so on, that I still don't know anything about, by the way, these kind of things. And also, let's say, more seriously, in emerging markets, in 5 years' time, you can turn things around. If you have the right strategy and you have the right product fit and the right campaign, you can really turn things around. And it's really amazing to see how fast you can grow and you can change over completely. So it was pretty exciting.
for the first time you found your own company or co-found a company. What was the genesis of that, and why did you pick that particular opportunity that you saw in the marketplace?
Actually, the idea picked me. My business partner at that time, or a friend of mine, had the idea of starting a business process outsourcing company. He worked in that branch, and he said, "Look, I know a lot about this word, and you know about digital. So why don't we go together? And you could be like more like working in sales and marketing, and we could bring the business together." So after careful consideration, I realized, yes, why not? Like, let's start this up. And it was really exciting because from being an advertiser, and then after that, helping companies building brands in the digital world, and eventually I went on to providing these great talent to agencies that were growing and were starting to really grow offshore also. And most of the clients that we had were like in e-commerce, and they needed customer support, and they needed also software developers. And we started working for Silicon Valley companies, advertisers from everywhere, from the Philippines. So I stayed, let's say, like in the same supply chain, and this is where supply chain comes eventually.
You're providing companies with all different types of outsourced services. Is that correct?
Yes.
The thread that gets you to where the company that you co-founded now as an employer of record, just take us through the journey from getting from Eats Advantage with the outsourcing to the new company.
What I started back then in 2009 and for 10 years until 2019 was really like business process outsourcing. It's a bit like what Accenture offers or other big names. Eventually, we were a smaller third party, so we were more like a jack of all trades in the beginning. But then eventually, we had to grow together with our clients. So we were like really like our discipline at that moment was really customer centricity, and we said like, okay, we're not cheaper, we don't have a better product, but probably like we can stick to the customer that we have and that know us because we had a good network at that time. And we really grow with them along the needs that they have. And this is the discipline we had. And from that moment, we grew really like with two big waves. Like the first was really the e-commerce wave. And the second was more like globalization, or like people wanting to really go global with their talent before COVID, like until in the 2010s.
And how did you help them with that?
It's really talent. So, and that's why like being in the Philippines for us was critical, because we realized we were like surrounded by like one of the largest talent pool in the world, like 1.3 million working with high skills working in outsourcing world in the Philippines, and everything is concentrated around Metro Manila. So it was really essential to our success. So surfing that wave, having access to these great resources, and we really grew fond of the Filipino people. Like I'm still working now with my team is based in the Philippines. They were up to the challenge, and they were really like delivering one of the best services. It's recognized globally in customer service, the greatest talent there in the Philippines and in that region. Before COVID, I came back to Europe with my family. And then COVID struck, and then I realized it was not as fun as this, actually, to manage a large center in the distance, etc. The time was ripe for me, like, to move on to something else. And there was a management buyout at that time, so my business partner stayed there. And then I moved on to something that I wanted to start for a long time, which was as a full HR as a service kind of company, which was helping companies grow abroad, wherever they were and wherever they wanted to be, and being agnostic to the country. So in emerging markets, more like really coming back to my own roots, like helping people in Africa and in Asia also by being able to connect the companies that needed to work in some areas where they don't have an entity, how to employ people, because really like having fair employment and getting the benefits was essential, or is essential for employees in emerging markets, being bankable, having access to a credit and everything, and getting a little bit out of the gig economy, because most people now really want to have a decent employment contract. So helping, being in touch with emerging markets, providing for great opportunities for them.
So there was already a market there, and you were trying to systematize it both for the sort of remote talent, as well as making that talent much more accessible in a more sort of coordinated and organized fashion for the employers. What type of talent and what type of employers were first of all most open to the talent that you were finding, or accessing for them?
Accessing, that's the thing. The great thing about employer of record is we are your HR department in a country where you are not present. So it's really like a remote HR service. So eventually, the decisions, the strategic decisions are still made by the people. And this is what I find very exciting about this is I instead of being stuck to a labor market where I try to provide the right skills and the right teams for some people and really trying to offer this to them, eventually I realized after COVID, eventually more and more of my prospect back then were coming to us saying, hey, you know what, I've recruited someone on LinkedIn, or I found someone remotely and this person is already working for us. I was like, whoa, so do you need me to find for other people? Yes, maybe you can enlarge the team, etc., but along those lines.
Okay.
So I realized that eventually now the word getting more flatter and flatter, eventually people can find even remotely the talents that they want. So what kind of talent? It's usually pre-sales for organizations that are expanding, whether it's with services or with products, manufactured products abroad.
Okay.
They would need everything which is related to pre-sales. So business development managers,
Sure.
sometimes marketing, etc. So people that will help you get access to this market. And then another one is more tech support and tech in general, in America and in Europe. Eventually, you don't, once you grow your team, you cannot scale at size very rapidly.
Right.
So sometimes when you get successful with your launch with a new SaaS or a new product that you sell online, eventually you need to have this kind of engineers that would help you maintain usually the software and doing all the necessary support for it, while your key engineers at home, usually start to get bored when you need to maintain, they always want to keep on developing new things, or B, they want to manage larger teams, but eventually it's very difficult for you to find 5-6 engineers at once.
Sure.
That are with the same kind of quality. So software engineers is usually one of the profiles. And then the last one, the last third, I would say it's really sometimes very exotic. We support people working for a space agency that are there to analyze things about the impact of global warming on oceans.
Okay.
People working for NGOs, a lot of green energy as well.
Right.
So everything really related to climate change and NGOs usually also
Interesting.
They need these kind of HR services, and we help them along those ways, and we start to partner with more and more clients.
When we more recently spoke, you had said that often it can be startups going through one of their initial growth phases and have been working with developers or particularly or maybe pre-sales folks on a more ad hoc basis, and then they need an employer of record when they're starting to either grow the team or get venture funding. So at these different stages of development, and you also mentioned that when their teams get to a certain size, they don't actually take them in-house. They still use you as an employer of record to keep I guess that flexibility and is you're outsourced HR in that sense. So I'm just curious in terms of how different companies are using the employer of record type of services. This area is growing really fast, and I look at it very much as being how companies are looking at the combination of their workforce, who it's made up of, employees, non-employees, contractors, and how the employer of record plays into that composition.
Going back to my early studies, like there's capital and labor. So these are the two things that you can inject in your function to make it work if you look analytically. So there's always, like every single way of making capital more liquid exists. So you have futures, you have options, stock options, you have bonds, everything exists. Labor is pretty cranky. It's a factor that's very difficult to obtain, to acquire, and I'm speaking in analytical terms. So like eventually it comes to the fact that eventually you have contracts in different countries, you cannot translate them, you have to go and post physically.
Right.
In some places you need really to have a stamp every end of month to pay the government taxes and all these things. So it is a factor that's not so liquid. This is what I'm gonna spend a lot of time like still digging into. It's like making labor more liquid. Then eventually, that's why like we call it workforce, but like I believe more and more in the concept of worknet. Like people are getting companies, and usually startups and scale-ups are the first ones to adopt this. Larger companies, yes, they're still on the way, but a little bit further down, on the path. Eventually, like the worknet is really like you can work with someone that is based in different country, that is working in different time zone. You can work distributed on a distributed way. You can access different markets also and tap into other markets in terms of workforce, and sometimes even like cover for different time zones for your own customers because they are not located in the same time zones as you are. If you go global, you can work with people that would help you on a project for a couple of months or that would be there for a longer period. So eventually the workforce is getting more and more flexible and also not only flexible, but the fact that some people want to move from companies after 3-4 years. Like it's you don't want to make your whole career in one company.
Yeah.
So this flexibility with at the same time the necessity to provide for your family, to have a shelter, and to be bankable and to keep growing in life. So with those two elements, eventually you need somehow the security of an employment from an employee perspective, and we're really happy to provide that because it's essential to the growth of people. But then at the same time, companies are really getting onto this kind of distributed way of growing. And there are different moments in their lives, in the life cycle of companies where they would need to access this.
You are an employer of record.
Yes.
So that is, you have employees who are working with other companies. Is it contract work as well? So you're supporting people who are working on projects for other companies?
No, we don't. We really want to engage into a longer term contract because we believe this is the right thing for employees at that stage of their career. If people want to stay as contractors, I think there's a lot of platforms that Uberize these kind of services. For employees, if they get to the stage where they say, "Look, I'm good now with the gig economy. Like I'm gonna get into something a little bit more serious, and I want to build for the future," then eventually they would get onto contracts, and usually they would rather work with an employer of record. At the same time, for companies, there are moments where like you're growing, you're like going after seed round, you're going like for Series A, Series B, and your chief legal officer is looking at this and saying like, "Hey, what's happening? Are we employing people that overnight like that working from a McDonald's and accessing the data of our companies?" I believe we were like growing into something like a little bit more sturdy and serious. And yes, indeed, you realize you cannot always have like contractors, etc. You need to get contracts and have these people signing NDAs or complying with GDPR and all these kind of things, and this is or ISO, and this is what we do as an employer. Also, we enforce these kind of rules, and we realize that for cybersecurity reasons, for privacy reason, also, it's very essential to have employees complying with a couple of rules. So we stay more compliant than with pure contractors.
Interesting. So that's a lot of compliance to be dealing with. You're the employer of record, but for different clients of yours who have very different security protocols, all that type of thing. So you're always able to adapt for that particular client as their employer, the employer of record for the talent that they need. And what countries are you mostly, or did you originally start out with in terms of where the talent's coming from and the companies that you're working with, and how has that been evolving over time? As the pandemic really has opened up people's eyes to how much they can be sourcing talent, this much more liquid labor market for them.
So my mission was really to be in emerging markets. At this stage of my career, I could really feel that I was working along my values also. It's Southeast Asia, so this is where we have like offices in most of the ASEAN region, in Africa also, because it's dear to me. I'm coming from Congo originally, or my father's from Congo. Was born and raised in Belgium, but like I have ties with that continent. I'm based in Brussels in Europe, and eventually most of my clients, they ask me for also like opening in major markets. So we are also actually present now mostly in Europe, and some are pushing us to go to America. So you have the mission, you have the dream, and then eventually you have the reality. So we are both in let's say in 3 continents: Africa, Southeast Asia, and or Asia Pacific, and Europe. Yes.
As things are evolving for the employer of record market, I've seen that the numbers, it's growing very fast over the last 5 years. And how do you see that growing now in the future in terms of in those sort of the same 3 buckets of talent that people are looking for, or across the board? There's a much greater variety of talent that's being sought out, wherever that might be from.
People will start to work from anywhere, like be it in their own country, where they'll realize actually, why do I have to stay in the most expensive city, be it in America or in Europe, while actually I could do this from the countryside and at the same time enjoy a better life. Like sometimes like you need some kind of support in terms of HR, and not all scale-ups are organized this way. Another thing is of course like the digital nomads, like people that want to spend more time abroad, etc. From a company's perspective, HR is sometimes like a bit like the forgotten function, and I believe it's going to get tremendously exciting to work in this area, because it's all about the people. Like it's all about in life. I mean, like eventually, like what do you remember about your time abroad? Like the people you were with, the time you spent with your loved ones, or the people that you met, the way that you discovered new cultures, etc. So I think culture, learning and development. We keep on learning. Like large language model, it's based on learning also. So we need to keep on learning also. So learning and development, culture, and eventually human resource management as a whole is a very exciting area. And now today, companies realize that if you want to scale fast, what do you do? Like first problem, like do you want talent at speed, or do you want talent with purpose? If you want talent at speed, like next door, like probably like you won't find the people you need, etc. But if you want to have the people that are really sharing the same purpose that you have, if you sell a very particular service, eventually you would want to balance eventually the speed with the intentionality that you have in your recruitment. And sometimes the only way to achieve this is to go a little bit further than your your country or your mother market, and then maintaining this kind of fit and cohesion in the company. But so of course, know the local trend. Like people want everything to be a little bit more local. But at the same time, if you are a global company and you want to tap this kind of local opportunities, sometimes you need to hire people that are really from that region. If you want to be relevant in Vietnam tomorrow or Malaysia, or if you want to develop new routes for your supply chain, etc., but you don't know how to do these kind of things, the local context matters more and more. And so we're going to like a local kind of trend like that gets a little bit like against like the big globalization that we used to have. But for companies, you need to access this talent locally that will know a little bit better sometimes. And eventually, like for larger company, mobility is really like helping you at the growth ladder as well. Large companies, they don't know how to keep people engaged and excited. So, okay, what about mobility? Like, do you want to offer them like careers? Like, you need to really like find a better purpose for you in this company. So most of the time, moving laterally to a different region, getting in touch with a different culture can be really like a revelation for your career. And I believe like for this, you need like a strong HR, and you're not equipped. People are less and less equipped. So we are HR as a service.
Particularly fast-growing companies aren't equipped with the HR in place and all the different elements that are needed. And HR is shifting so much as well. It's really changing some of the functionality that's needed, based on all the things that you're saying in terms of where to find talent. And of course, the skills that are needed and how fast the skills that are being needed, and therefore having to source talent differently in order to grow rapidly in the different places with the different sensibilities, whether local or further afield, is to get the talent that is needed. Really, really interesting times. With this ultimate mission to help labor become more liquid, are there other elements to how you see that happening over time, whether it's short, medium, or much longer term for the evolution of the business and the marketplace?
I don't have a crystal ball, but like what we see and what we hear is people are getting ready to experiment a little bit more. And this is great. So we've said like, okay, scaling with purpose, yes. So most people do it. Needing to decentralize, yes. Okay, getting help from experts. But at the same time, in scale-ups and companies are ready, like really to encourage experimentation, things that are coming from different regions.
Interesting.
So eventually, how do we see this? Like we see a lot of exciting things happening. For instance, now more companies are thinking like, do we still need to log in and log out every day? Like, so does it make sense? If you think like 10 years from now, would it still make sense to file for a leave or file for a sick leave or vacation leave or then bereavement leave? Like all these kind of. Does it make sense to receive? Okay, I'm getting a bit further away, but like a fixed salary per month. Does it even make sense to make a career in one company? Of course, this question is already answered. It depends how you want to move the cursor. Like in futurology, going really further away, and. It can get pretty exciting and wild, actually, because these things, some things that don't make sense, like today, or that don't seem to make sense today, like not getting the same payslip every month. Yeah. Maybe you should get paid like differently every month, etc., according to what you want to achieve or what you have achieved, or you can move like you receive the same thing, but you move the blocks around the year.
All these different things can be thought about differently when we really start. Sort of opening up our minds to how can we be doing things differently. Yes.
Exactly. There's two aspects. Like one is we need to keep on inspiring our clients with great solutions. At the same time, we are really like implementing what they want to achieve in the end. But it's great because while following some of our most innovative clients, we realize like best practice, and we can also prepare like the best solutions for all and suggest sometime. We're like a consulting partner, and our clients come to us asking, okay, what should we do about this? What should we do about that? This person, or sometimes exciting case is where it's very personal, saying, okay, I'm Colombian, I'm going to get into this new country in Great Britain. We're hoping to get a baby soon. Like, when can I be pregnant? Or other cases where, like, okay, there are like there's some social unrest in this country where this person is living. Can you help us moving this person around to a different country? So sometimes we're doing like very exciting and social, and we're helping people really change their lives. And sometimes it's with problems or issues that people have that are more like linked with how to acquire new talent and be indeed like more liquid in the way that they approach the new Gen Z, etc. So it's a renewed excitement to work along those solutions, because it is very personal. It is in the end, like, there's tech. Yes, there's automation, and there's some kind of eventually like reporting, etc., that can be straightforward and dull, but it's all about the people. So we're not here like trying to make a fund, I don't know, a hedge fund even bigger. We don't know what it invests in. It's people, and it's their lives, and it's really touching them every day, and it's exciting.
So my last question is, for a company exploring how to use an employer of record, such as your company, to be accessing more talent, different skills, what are the key things that they need to be asking themselves first, and the questions that they need to be ready to ask you?
I'm going to go a little bit above the nitty-gritty, but of course, like a couple of things that they need to think. Like, first, they need to think about their people first, because like they're going to get contracts. We're going to make it like look like eventually what they have. Like they have a memorandum of understanding that they sign with someone. They say, this is what we want to achieve. And it's much more easy. It's easier to make that in a contract. So if you sign this MOU with someone that you found or that eventually you want to partner with in a country, and you have a good understanding of what you want to achieve, then you give it to us, and then we make it alive. This is like the nitty-gritty and etc. What is it that they could be thinking about? It's like, have you thought about hiring your next local CEO in a country where you are not even present? What? No, probably not. Or have you thought about like tapping into this market, because your services, they can definitely achieve like some success in other markets where you don't know. Have you thought about like going international, or do you want to be growing a little bit faster in countries where like the growth is even much bigger? And these kind of things actually it's an interesting question I like to have with some of my friends or people I meet, because eventually sometimes we don't think further enough, or we don't open up our horizons, and we like to open new horizons for entrepreneurs, because eventually we want to achieve more growth, and at the same time, while you do this, actually you do it for good, you do for the good of people that are in a country. Don't forget, like there's a lot of migration, there's a lot of people seeking for new opportunities. What we offer is a local opportunity for someone that would be in her country working for a great employer that you are, and at the same time providing for her family and staying there in her community while not breaking up a family, which is great. Right. This is actually how we would all love to live. And sometimes it's fun because people go out of the door, and there's the vibrant world where they are, and then they come back to their desk, and eventually they're connected to a totally different world. Yeah. So it's cross-fertilizing. It's a great way to think of the world, and we like to be part of this.
It's very powerful, going back full circle to Coke, when you're saying that working for Coke had really pushed you to think, to expand your horizons, which is now what your company is doing for other companies to help them look further than their typical horizons right now, as well as expanding the horizons of the employees that you are hiring for other companies. Fred, it's such a delight speaking with you and understanding all these different experiences and how that has got you to the place where you are and helped you develop this company and offer the services that you are for companies and employees all over the world, so that everybody can be scaling faster and accessing talent and helping that talent really grow and develop their own skills and career paths. So thank you so much, Fred. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time. So we keep on thinking big with Empleyo. So we're very happy to be here, and let's continue expanding horizons with the workforce.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you again so much to Fréderic Tshidimba, Chief Inspiration Officer at Empleyo. You can find out more about Frédéric on LinkedIn, as well as go to their website at empleyo.com, empleyo.com. If you are interested in more insights about how modern work dynamics are affecting your team or company, sign up for one of my new executive coaching sessions. We can discuss your top priorities or most pressing questions, whether that's about managing distributed workers, leading multi-generational teams, or how to scale rapidly in the modern work environment. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it and share it with a friend. You can also write a quick review wherever you watch or listen. For more curated, useful information, research, and insights, follow me on LinkedIn and sign up for my Work in Progress newsletter at flexos.work, flexos.work. Thanks for watching. Until next time.